Have you ever wondered how much plastic is in our oceans? An alarming question, isn't it? Beneath the waves, out of sight and often out of mind, a crisis is unfolding. Our oceans, once the picture of pristine beauty, are now littered with an estimated 170 trillion tiny plastic particles. That's right, 170 trillion. These particles weigh in at a staggering 2.3 million tons. It's difficult to fathom the scale of this issue, but imagine this. That's equivalent to over 340,000 adult blue whales, the largest creatures on Earth. Now, where is all this plastic coming from? Well, it's a worldwide problem, but let's take a look at Brazil as an example. This country alone contributes a whopping 3.4 million tons of plastic waste to the oceans every year. Pet bottles, straws, bags, you name it, it's ending up in the sea. What appears to be a simple act of disposal has far-reaching consequences on a global scale. The repercussions are profound, affecting not only marine life but also the delicate balance of our ecosystems. Plastic waste, once it reaches the ocean, doesn't just disappear. It breaks down into smaller particles, infiltrates food chains, and even threatens our own health. The situation is dire, and it's not an exaggeration to say that our waters are slowly turning into a ticking time bomb. It's a threat that's been decades in the making, but it's not too late to take action. We need to face this crisis head-on to preserve our oceans for future generations, because if we don't, who will? The ocean's silent cry for help is getting louder. Can you hear it? It's time we listened. It's time we acted. Because if we don't, the unseen crisis beneath the waves might just become impossible to ignore, and by then, it could be too late. Our waters are slowly turning into a ticking time bomb. In the year 1968, the act of dumping waste into the ocean was considered normal. This was a time when the world was less aware of the environmental consequences of our actions. The United States alone dumped millions of tons of varying waste into the deep blue, including excavation materials, industrial remnants, raw sewage, plastics, chemical residues, and even heavy metals. Imagine, if you will, a world where the ocean, our planet's lifeblood, was treated as a global trash can, a convenient solution to the problem of waste disposal. The prevailing mindset was that the vastness of the oceans could absorb whatever humanity threw at it. But as we now know, that was far from the truth. In the 2 decades spanning from the mid-40s to the 60s, over 55,000 containers of radioactive substrates were unceremoniously dumped into the Pacific Ocean. On the East Coast, another 34,000 containers joined them between 1951 and 1962. These radioactive waste disposal practices were a ticking time bomb, lurking beneath the waves. This era was a time of rapid industrialization and technological advancement, but it was also a time when we lacked a basic understanding of the long-term impacts of our actions on the environment. It was a time when the convenience of waste disposal trumped the potential harm to our ecosystems. The 1960s were a time when we were blissfully ignorant of the damage we were inflicting on our oceans. But as we moved into the 1970s, a growing awareness of the destructive impacts of these practices began to dawn on humanity. The year 1968 stands out as a stark illustration of a time when we treated the ocean as an out-of-sight, out-of-mind landfill. But as we'll see, the 1970s brought about a much-needed shift in our attitudes towards waste disposal and our oceans. So, as we reflect on the 1960s, it's clear that our past actions have had far-reaching consequences. The waste we've dumped has not disappeared. Instead, it has lingered, causing untold harm to our marine ecosystems and the creatures that call the ocean home. In the end, it's a sobering reminder that our oceans were treated as the world's garbage dump. The 1970s brought a new consciousness about the harm we were inflicting on our oceans, a decade of awareness where the world began to wake up to the reality of our impact on marine life. The practices of casually dumping millions of tons of waste into the ocean, as though it were an infinite garbage bin, began to be re-evaluated. From the late 40s to the early 70s, more than 55,000 containers of radioactive substrates found their final resting place in the Pacific Ocean. An additional 34,000 containers were dumped off the East Coast between the years of 1951 and 1962. However, the 70s marked a turning point in this destructive narrative, ushering in a period of increased scrutiny and environmental responsibility. The London Convention of 1972 was a significant milestone in this journey. It marked a global commitment towards stricter public policies and sustainable waste management practices, steering us away from the reckless disposal habits of the past. During this same period, An ambitious project sparked interest off the coast of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The rapid growth of the automotive industry led to a surge in tire waste, and the Oceanic Reef Company proposed a novel idea. They suggested using these tires to rebuild coral reefs, creating new habitats for marine life. On paper, it looked promising. But in reality, it was a different story. The tires, bound with steel and nylon, corroded over time, breaking loose and being swept away by storms and currents. These rogue tires damaged existing natural reefs and released toxic chemicals into the ocean. What was initially seen as an innovative solution rapidly transformed into an ecological disaster, a stark reminder of the unpredictability and fragility of nature. Efforts to clean up this tire reef began in the early 2000s, but the task was enormous. Despite the progress made by various initiatives, around 500,000 tires remained as of 2022, a reminder of our past mistakes and the challenges we still face. What seemed like a solution became an ecological disaster. The turn of the 21st century marked the beginning of a colossal cleanup. As we stepped into a new millennium, the daunting task of addressing our past environmental missteps began to unfold. The tire reef off the coast of Florida, once seen as an innovative solution, had turned into an ecological nightmare. The cleanup of this man-made disaster started in earnest in 2001. The challenges were monumental. Imagine trying to remove millions of tires from the ocean floor, each one entangled with marine life and embedded in the seabed. It was like trying to untangle a ball of string that had been knotted and left to sit for decades. The US military stepped in, deploying divers and employing advanced technology to haul the tires from their watery grave. It was a mission unlike any other, a battle against time and tide to undo the damage of the past. But it wasn't just a government operation. Private companies too played a crucial role in these cleanup efforts. Take 4Ocean for instance. This company, driven by a mission to clean the oceans and coastlines, joined the fight against this tire pollution. Their efforts helped to significantly reduce the number of tires littering the ocean floor. However, not everyone was on board with this approach. Controversies arose, debates sparked, questions were raised about the ethics of involving companies that could potentially be linked to the initial problem. But amidst these disagreements, the cleanup continued. Now let's fast forward to today. Despite the relentless efforts, around 500,000 tires still remain, stubbornly nestled on the ocean floor. The progress made is commendable, but the challenge that lies ahead is still significant. This monumental task serves as a stark reminder of our past misjudgments and the lasting impact they can have on our environment. But it also stands as a testament to our ability to recognize our mistakes, to learn from them, and to work tirelessly towards rectifying them. But with around 500,000 tires still needing removal, the challenge remains significant. This isn't just America's problem, it's a global crisis. Indeed, the troubling tale of ocean pollution extends far beyond the shores of the United States. Let's take a journey across the Atlantic to France in the 1980s, where another well-intentioned but ultimately disastrous project took place. Here, they also saw the mounting piles of discarded tires as a potential resource. The plan? To create artificial reefs, providing new habitats for marine life. But like the Tire Reef Project in Florida, the French experiment failed spectacularly. The tires, instead of acting as a nurturing cradle for marine life, turned into a destructive force. The same issues that plagued the Florida project reared their ugly heads in France. The tires broke free, swept up by the currents, and wreaked havoc on the natural reefs. The toxic chemicals they released into the water were an unwelcome addition to the already struggling ecosystem, and France is not alone in this. From the seafaring nations of Europe to the island paradises of the Pacific, the story is strikingly similar. A global pattern emerges, a narrative of environmental missteps and miscalculations that echo from the past into our present. We are all connected by these vast bodies of water. They cover more than 70% of our planet, and yet, we've treated them like dumpsters, a convenient place to dispose of our waste, out of sight and out of mind. But the repercussions of these actions are catching up with us. The once vibrant underwater worlds are now suffocating under the weight of our mistakes, a grim reminder of our collective failure to protect these precious ecosystems. However, let's not forget that the same global community that contributed to this crisis can also be the solution. Despite the missteps of the past, we have the power to change the narrative. We have the knowledge, the technology, and the collective will to turn things around and restore the health of our oceans. We've made many mistakes, but it's not too late to set things right. Let this be our rallying cry as we face the challenges ahead. We owe it to the oceans, and we owe it to ourselves. Our oceans need us now, more than ever. Our oceans are the lifeblood of our planet, providing food, supporting biodiversity, and regulating our climate. But they are under threat from plastic pollution, and the time to act is now. Each year, around 170 trillion tiny plastic particles weighing over 2.3 million tons find their way into our oceans. It's a staggering number, isn't it? And it's not just an environmental issue, but a human one too. We've been dumping our waste into the oceans for decades, thinking it was a convenient solution to our garbage problem. But we were wrong. The consequences of our actions are now coming back to haunt us. From the failed Tire Reef Project in Florida in the 70s to the radioactive waste dumping between the 40s to the 60s, we've made some serious mistakes, but we've also learned from them. The London Convention of 1972 was a turning point, leading to stricter public policies and more sustainable waste management practices. We've begun to clean up our mess, but there's still a long way to go. As of 2022, around 500,000 tires still need to be removed from the ocean floor. The task is daunting, but not insurmountable. Everyone can play a part in turning the tide on plastic pollution. Reduce, reuse, and recycle. Choose products with less packaging. Opt for reusable items over single-use ones. Participate in local beach cleanups. Advocate for policies that promote sustainable waste management. And let's not forget the role of innovation. Companies like 4Ocean are developing solutions to clean up our oceans, but they can't do it alone. They need our support, our ideas, and our commitment to a cleaner, healthier planet. Remember, every little bit helps. Each piece of plastic you pick up, each product you choose not to buy, each conversation you have about this issue, is a step towards a solution. Every action counts. Together, we can turn the tide on plastic pollution. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and found it informative, please give it a thumbs up. Your likes really make a difference and motivate us to create more great content. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to stay updated with our latest videos. And if you think this video could benefit others, please share it with your friends and family. Sharing not only helps our channel grow but also spreads knowledge and awareness. We appreciate your support and are excited to bring you more interesting content. Remember, every like, subscription, and share counts. Thanks for being part of our community.